Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Harbinger and watched the stars change around him. The ship had just come out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Behind him, 11 other human warships appeared in perfect formation. Their dark hulls seemed to eat the light from the distant sun. 3 years had passed since the aliens attacked Earth's outer colonies. 3 years since the galaxy thought humanity was dead. The alien coalition had celebrated their victory over the humans they called dangerous newcomers. The Zephyrian Empire, the Crystalline Hegemony, and the Void Hunters had divided up human space among themselves like it was a prize. But humanity had not died. They had gone quiet and worked in secret. Deep in the hidden shipyards around Earth's moon, human engineers had built something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Lisa Grant checked her sensors and looked at Morrison with bright eyes. The alien trading station that circled the fourth planet had gone completely silent. No messages, no warnings, no calls for help. Just complete silence that felt heavy and strange. Morrison knew why they were quiet. The galaxy remembered what humans could do in war. They remembered how humans refused to give up even when they should have lost. They remembered the battles, where human ships kept fighting even when they were falling apart. Now humanity had returned, and their new ships were different from anything that existed before. The UES Harbinger and her sister ships moved through space like ghosts. Their new engines let them slip in and out of normal space like shadows moving through light. On the view screen, Morrison could see the alien station clearly. It was a massive structure that spun slowly around the planet below. Thousands of aliens lived and worked there. Trading ships came and went every day. Or they had until the human ships appeared. Now everything was still. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez looked up from her science station with worry on her face. She had been tracking the alien ships in the system when the humans arrived. Merchant vessels had simply stopped moving. Military patrol craft had powered down their weapons. Even the big cargo haulers had gone dark. It was like the entire system had held its breath. Morrison walked to the communications station where Ensign Rick Foster was trying to pick up alien transmissions. The young officer shook his head slowly. Nothing was coming through except automated beacon signals. The humans had not fired a shot. They had not sent any threats. They had simply appeared and everything else had frozen in place. Morrison remembered the last time he had been in this system. His ship had been the UES Boston then, a much smaller vessel. He had been escorting human colonists to their new home on the third planet. That was before the war. Before the aliens decided that humans were too dangerous to live. The colonists on that planet were all dead now. The aliens had bombed them from orbit and built their own cities over the ruins. They had done the same thing to 12 other human worlds. Millions of people had died. But the aliens had made one big mistake. They had thought that destroying those colonies would break humanity's spirit. Instead, it had made humans angry in a way the galaxy had never seen before. Captain Grant moved to stand beside Morrison at the forward window. She was looking at the readouts from their new sensors. The technology was so advanced that it could see things that should have been impossible to detect. She could see the alien crews hiding inside their ships. She could measure their fear through the hull plating. The new human sensors were that good. Morrison touched a control and spoke into the ship's communication system. His voice went out to all 12 human ships in the formation. Each vessel was crewed by people who had lost family and friends in the alien attacks. Each ship carried weapons that could crack planets open, but today they would not need to use those weapons. The aliens were doing exactly what Morrison had hoped they would do. They were remembering every story they had ever heard about human warfare. They were thinking about every battle where humans had turned certain defeat into impossible victory, and they were choosing to stay very, very still. On the tactical display, Morrison could see more alien ships arriving at the edge of the system. But as soon as their sensors detected the human vessels, they jumped back into hyperspace without even slowing down. Word was spreading fast through the alien communication networks. Humanity had returned. Lieutenant Rodriguez reported that she was picking up similar patterns in 16 other star systems. Human ships had appeared everywhere at exactly the same time. In every system, the alien response was the same. Complete paralysis. Morrison smiled for the first time in 3 years. The plan was working better than anyone had dared to hope. The psychological warfare campaign had been carefully designed by human military planners who understood alien psychology better than the aliens understood themselves. Humans had studied their enemies for 3 years. They had learned how aliens thought and what they feared most. What they feared most was the return of humanity. Ensign Foster suddenly looked up from his station with surprise on his face. He was receiving a transmission from the alien trading station. Morrison nodded for him to put it on the main screen. The alien who appeared was clearly terrified. Its 4 eyes were wide and its tentacles were shaking. It spoke in broken English with a voice that trembled with each word. The alien said that the station surrendered completely. It said that all weapons were powered down. It said that they would evacuate immediately if the humans wanted them to. Leave. Morrison looked at the alien commander for a long moment. Then he spoke in a calm, quiet voice that somehow seemed more frightening than any shout could have been. He told the alien that humanity had returned to reclaim what was theirs. He said that any alien ship that left human space immediately would not be harmed. He said that any ship that stayed would be destroyed. The alien commander nodded so fast that its whole body shook. The transmission ended. Within an hour, every alien ship in the system was jumping to hyperspace. They left behind everything they could not carry. Equipment, supplies, even personal belongings were abandoned in their rush to escape. Morrison watched the last alien vessel disappear into hyperspace and felt a deep satisfaction. The galaxy had learned its first lesson about the new humanity. There would be many more lessons to come. Admiral Ben Carter stood in the command center of the UES Retribution and watched reports come in from across the galaxy. His flagship was 3 times larger than any ship humanity had built before the war. Its weapons could destroy entire fleets. Its armor could stop anything the aliens had ever created, but today those weapons stayed silent. The human fleet of 12 ships moved through the Kepler 442 system like hunters stalking prey. But their prey was not running. Instead, every alien vessel in the system had simply stopped moving. Cargo ships drifted with their engines off. Military patrol craft hung motionless in space. Even the big mining platforms had shut down all their operations. Carter had fought aliens before the war. He remembered how they used to attack human ships with wild courage. Zephyrian warriors would charge into battle singing their death songs. Crystalline hegemony cruisers would fight until they exploded rather than surrender. Now they were hiding like frightened children. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was explaining the new technology to Carter's staff officers. The phase shift drives that powered the human ships were beyond anything the aliens had imagined possible. The ships could move partially outside normal space. They could appear and disappear from sensors like ghosts. To alien eyes, the human vessels looked like they were breaking the laws of physics. Captain Ryan Hayes commanded the UES Nightfall from his position at the center of the formation. His ship specialized in electronic warfare. Its sensors could listen to alien communications across dozens of star systems at the same time. What Hayes was hearing made him smile. Alien military commanders were sending desperate messages to their home worlds. They were reporting that human ships had appeared in 17 different systems simultaneously. They were asking for orders for reinforcements for any kind of help. But the alien governments were not sending help. Instead, they were ordering their fleets to avoid contact with human ships at all costs. The massive Zephyrian battlecruiser Eternal Glory hung near the system's largest gas giant like a dead thing. 3 years ago, that same ship had bombarded human colonies from orbit. Its crew had laughed as they killed millions of innocent people. Now its crew was sealed inside their own ship, too afraid to even respond to communication attempts. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Bennett prepared her Marines aboard the UES Shadow Strike. She had expected to fight bloody battles to reclaim human space. Her troops were ready for anything the aliens could throw at them. Instead, she was preparing them for occupation duty. The aliens were surrendering without a fight. Bennett remembered the last battle she had fought against alien ground forces. It had been on the human colony of New Detroit. Her Marines had held the spaceport for 6 days against overwhelming odds. They had fought until their ammunition ran out and then fought with knives and bare hands. Half her Marines had died in that battle, but they had given the civilian population time to evacuate. Now she was returning to that same system. The aliens, who had taken New Detroit, were already packing up to leave. They had received word that human ships were coming and decided not to wait around to see what would happen. Captain Diana Moore commanded the scout ship UES Phantom from her position at the edge of the formation. Her vessel was the smallest in the fleet, but also the most advanced. It could become completely invisible to any sensor the aliens possessed. Moore had been using her ship to observe alien reactions in nearby systems. What she saw told her everything. She needed to know about how much the galaxy had changed. In the Tau Ceti system, an entire alien battle fleet had jumped to hyperspace the moment a single human ship appeared. They had not tried to communicate. They had not attempted to identify the vessel. They had simply run away as fast as their engines could carry them. In the Wolf 359 system, alien cargo ships were abandoning their loads and fleeing toward the outer rim. Millions of credits worth of goods were being left behind because their crews were too terrified to stay in systems where humans might appear. The psychological campaign was working better than anyone had dared to hope. Admiral Carter received a priority message from Earth Command. Fleet Admiral Kate Williams was reporting similar success in every system where human ships had appeared. Alien forces were evacuating entire star systems without being asked to leave. The aliens had spent 3 years building their own cities, on human worlds. They had constructed military bases and mining operations. They had moved millions of their own people into human space. Now they were abandoning all of it. Carter understood why the aliens were so afraid. During the war, humanity had developed a reputation for impossible victories. Human ships would win battles they should have lost. Human soldiers would keep fighting even when they were outnumbered 100-1. The aliens had started calling humans the ones who do not know when to die. But there was more to their fear than just military reputation. The aliens had committed genocide against human colonies. They had killed millions of innocent people, including women and children. They knew that if humans wanted revenge, they would take it. What the aliens did not understand was that humanity had moved beyond simple revenge. The new human fleet was not interested in destroying alien civilizations. They wanted something much more valuable. They wanted respect. Dr. Rodriguez was monitoring alien communication networks from her science station. The conversation she was intercepting painted a clear picture of how the galaxy now viewed humanity. Alien. News broadcasts were calling the human return the awakening of the void. Alien military analysts were trying to understand how humans had developed such advanced technology in only 3 years. Some thought humans had made contact with an ancient alien race. Others believed humans had found artifacts from a dead civilization. The bar. Truth was simpler and more terrifying. Humans had done what they always did when faced with extinction. They had adapted and innovated and refused to give up. Captain Hayes reported that alien diplomatic channels were beginning to activate. The first formal messages from alien governments were starting to arrive. But these were not declarations of war or demands for negotiation. They were simple questions asking what humanity wanted. Carter looked out at the alien trading station that still hung silent in the distance. Its massive structure could house thousands of people. Its docking bays could service hundreds of ships. Its manufacturing facilities could produce goods worth billions of credits. All of it would belong to humanity again within days. The aliens, who had built their lives on stolen human worlds, were learning what every human enemy eventually learned. You could knock humanity down. You could hurt them badly. You could even make them disappear for a while. But you should never assume they were defeated, because humans had a disturbing habit of coming back stronger than before. Fleet Admiral Kate Williams stood in the command center of the UES Dominion and prepared to address the galaxy. Her flagship was the largest vessel humanity had ever built. It was more than a warship. It was a statement that humanity had returned to stay. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. These were people who had lost everything when the aliens attacked human space. Their families were dead. Their homes were destroyed. Their entire way of life had been wiped out in a matter of weeks, but they had not given up hope. They had worked for 3 years to reach this moment. Williams activated the communication array and sent her message across every known frequency. The transmission would reach every alien world, every space station, every ship in the galaxy. It would be translated into hundreds of alien languages and broadcast continuously until everyone had heard it. She did not threaten anyone. She did not make demands or issue ultimatums. She simply told the truth. Humanity had survived the genocide attempt. Humanity had rebuilt its fleet with technology the aliens could not match. Humanity had returned to reclaim what belonged to them. The message was accompanied by tactical displays that showed the real size of the human fleet. What the aliens saw on their screens made their worst fears seem small by comparison. Hundreds of human warships were spread across the galaxy. Each one was equipped with weapons and defenses that seemed impossible. Ships that could phase in and out of reality. Weapons that could bend space itself. Armor that made the vessels appear indestructible. Commander Nick Foster piloted his scout, ship UES Phantom, deep into former human territory. His mission was to observe alien reactions to the fleet admiral's message. What he found exceeded all expectations. On the planet New Boston, the Zephyrian occupation forces were abandoning their positions without waiting for orders. Governor Thex 9 had declared a complete evacuation of all Zephyrian personnel and equipment. Transport ships were landing continuously to pick up alien settlers who had built new lives on human soil. The aliens were leaving behind everything they could not carry. Buildings they had constructed over human ruins. Manufacturing plants they had operated for 3 years. Even personal belongings were being abandoned in the rush to escape. Foster watched through his ship's advanced sensors as alien families loaded their most precious possessions onto evacuation ships. Children clutched toys as their parents hurried them toward the landing craft. Adults looked back at homes they would never see again. It might have been sad if these same aliens had not cheered when human children were killed from orbit. Captain Diana Moore commanded the UES Vengeance as it moved through the outer regions of human space. Her ship had encountered 17 different alien vessels in the past 6 hours. Every single one had jumped to hyperspace the moment they detected her ship on their sensors. They did not try to identify her vessel. They did not attempt to communicate. They did not even check to see if she was hostile. They simply ran away, as fast as their engines could carry them. Moore understood their fear. The human ships looked like nothing that should be able to exist. Their dark hulls seemed to absorb light and energy. Their engines left no trace that alien sensors could detect. Their weapons were completely invisible until they fired. To alien eyes, the human fleet looked like demons from their worst nightmares. The psychological warfare campaign had been planned by human military experts who understood alien psychology better than the aliens understood themselves. For 3 years, human intelligence officers had studied every aspect of alien culture and thinking. They had learned that aliens valued survival over honor. They had discovered that alien military doctrine emphasized avoiding fights they could not win. Most importantly, they had found that aliens were terrified of the unknown. The new human fleet represented the ultimate unknown threat. Dr. Amy Rodriguez monitored alien communication networks from her position aboard the UES Discovery. The conversations she intercepted painted a clear picture of how the galaxy was reacting to humanity's return. Alien news services were broadcasting constant updates about human ship sightings. Military analysts were trying to figure out how humans had developed such advanced technology. Political leaders were holding emergency sessions to decide how to respond. But the most interesting conversations were happening between ordinary alien citizens. They were sharing stories about human warfare that had become legends over the past 3 years. Tales of human ships that kept fighting even after they were destroyed. Stories of human soldiers who would rather die than surrender. The aliens had turned humanity into monsters in their own minds. Now those monsters had returned with technology that made their fears seem real. General Alex Thompson coordinated the reoccupation effort from his command ship, UES Liberation. Human Marines were landing on dozens of worlds without firing a shot. The alien occupation forces had evacuated so quickly that they left behind complete military bases. On the former human colony of New Terra, Major Helen Davis found the abandoned crystalline hegemony fortress intact. The aliens had left so quickly that their computers were still running. Security systems were still active. Even the weapons were still loaded and ready to fire. The enemy had handed humanity a complete intelligence database about their military, capabilities, and political structures. Every weakness in alien defenses was now known to human commanders. Davis walked through the empty corridors of the alien fortress and marveled at how complete the evacuation had been. Personal belongings were scattered on the floors where they had been dropped. Food was still cooking in the kitchen facilities. Some aliens had literally run away while eating their meals. The speed of the alien retreat told Davis everything she needed to know about how much the galaxy feared humanity's return. Captain Rick Anderson commanded the science vessel UES Discovery as it investigated the technology the aliens had left behind. His team of engineers and scientists were amazed by what they found. The aliens had spent 3 years trying to reverse engineer captured human technology. They had failed completely. Even with access to human ships and equipment, they had not been able to understand how human technology worked. But humans had no trouble understanding alien technology. Within hours of examining the abandoned alien equipment, Anderson's team had figured out how to improve it. The difference was not in intelligence or resources. The difference was in approach. Humans were willing to try things that seemed impossible. Aliens only attempted what seemed safe and proven. Admiral Patricia Hayes received the first formal diplomatic message from the alien coalition governments. It had taken them 6 hours to compose a response to Fleet Admiral Williams's broadcast. The message was not what anyone had expected. There were no threats or demands, no attempts to negotiate or bargain, no claims that the aliens had legitimate rights to former human territory. Instead, it was a simple question that revealed how completely the balance of power had shifted. The aliens wanted to know what humanity required of them. Hayes smiled as she read the message. 3 years ago, the same alien governments had declared humanity extinct. They had divided up human space like it was a prize to be claimed. They had celebrated the destruction of human civilization. Now they were asking permission to exist in the same galaxy as humanity. Fleet Admiral Williams received similar messages from alien governments across the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire was offering to pay reparations for the destroyed human colonies. The crystalline hegemony was requesting permission to maintain trade routes through neutral space. The Void Hunters had simply vanished into the deep void between galaxies. The galaxy had learned its lesson about underestimating humanity. The species that emerged from the void when everyone thought they were dead had become the dominant power in their region of space, and they had accomplished it without firing a single shot. General Alex Thompson watched from the bridge of the UES Liberation as human Marines landed on New Terra without opposition. The planet had been one of humanity's most important colonies before the war. Now it was becoming human again without a single shot being fired. The crystalline hegemony forces that had occupied New Terra for 3 years were gone. They had abandoned their bases, their equipment, and even their personal belongings in their rush to evacuate. Transport ships had worked around the clock to remove every alien from the planet's surface. Major Helen Davis led the first human team into the abandoned alien command center. The massive facility had been built over the ruins of New Terra's capital city. For 3 years, alien commanders had planned military operations from offices that stood above human graves. Now those same offices were empty and silent. Davis walked through corridors that still smelled of alien occupation. The evacuation had been so rushed that computer terminals were still active. Security systems were running normally. Even the climate control was maintained at alien comfort levels. In the main command room, Davis found tactical displays that showed alien military positions throughout human space. Or rather, what had been alien positions until a few hours ago. Every base, every garrison, every patrol route was marked clearly on the screens. The aliens had left behind a complete intelligence database about their own military operations. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Bennett coordinated Marine landings on 17 different worlds from her position aboard the UES Shadow Strike. Her troops had trained for 3 years to fight bitter battles against alien occupation forces. They had prepared for urban warfare, siege operations, and guerrilla campaigns. Instead, they were conducting unopposed landings on planets the aliens had already abandoned. On New Detroit, Bennett's Marines found alien equipment still warm from recent use. Vehicles were parked in neat rows with their keys still in the ignition. Weapons were stacked in armories with full ammunition loads. Food was cooking in mess halls where alien soldiers had been eating breakfast when the evacuation order came. The speed of the alien retreat was almost insulting. It suggested that alien forces valued their lives more than their duty or honor. But Bennett was not insulted. She was impressed. The psychological warfare campaign had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. Captain Rick Anderson studied the abandoned alien technology aboard his science vessel UES Discovery. His team of engineers had been expecting to find advanced equipment that would take months or years to understand. Instead, they found technology that was years behind current human capabilities. The aliens had spent 3 years trying to reverse engineer captured human equipment. They had failed completely. Even with access to human ships and weapons, they had not been able to understand the principles behind human technology. But the humans had no such problems with alien equipment. Anderson's team figured out how alien weapons worked within hours. They improved alien sensor systems in days. They redesigned alien shield generators to be twice as effective in less than a week. The technological gap between humans and aliens had grown much larger during the 3 years of separation. Dr. Amy Rodriguez monitored alien communication networks from her station and listened to conversations that revealed the true extent of alien fear. Military commanders were reporting to their governments that human technology appeared to violate known laws of physics. Alien scientists were debating whether humans had made contact with an unknown alien species or discovered artifacts from an ancient civilization. They could not believe that humans had developed such advanced technology on their own. The truth was simpler and more frightening than any alien theory. Humans had done what they always did when faced with extinction. They had adapted, innovated, and refused to accept defeat. Admiral Patricia Hayes coordinated with alien diplomatic channels as formal peace negotiations began. The process was unlike any diplomatic contact in galactic history. Normally, defeated powers would try to negotiate for better terms or demand concessions from the victors. The alien governments made no such attempts. They simply asked what humanity wanted from them. The Zephyrian Emperor sent a personal message to Earth offering to pay reparations for the destroyed human colonies. The amount offered was staggering. It represented the entire economic output of the Zephyrian Empire for the next 50 years. The crystalline hegemony went even further. They offered to dissolve their regional government and withdraw all their forces behind their original borders. They would give up territory they had controlled for centuries, just to avoid conflict with humanity. The Void Hunters took the most extreme action of all. They simply vanished into the deep space between galaxies. Long-range sensors detected their ships jumping to hyperspace and heading toward the galactic rim. They appeared to be leaving the galaxy entirely. Captain Diana Moore patrolled the borders of human space in the UES Vengeance and observed how alien behavior had changed. Commercial shipping routes that had passed through human territory for decades were being redirected around human space. The new routes were hundreds of light years longer and would cost alien merchants millions of credits in extra fuel and time. But they were willing to pay that cost rather than risk encountering human ships. Military patrol routes had changed as well. Alien warships that used to conduct regular sweeps through former human space were now staying at least 10 light years away from human territory. Some alien commanders had issued orders forbidding their ships from approaching human space under any circumstances. The galaxy was treating human territory like a quarantine zone that no one wanted to enter. Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Harbinger and watched alien evacuation ships leaving the Kepler 442 system. The EU massive trading station that had dominated the system for 3 years was now empty. Its alien inhabitants had packed everything they could carry and fled toward the outer rim. Soon, human colonists would return to rebuild what had been destroyed. Human families would make new homes on worlds where their relatives had died. Human children would play in parks built over alien ruins. Morrison remembered the last time he had been in this system. He had been escorting human colonists to their new home on the third planet. Those colonists were all dead now, killed when the aliens bombed the planet from orbit. But new colonists would come, humanity would rebuild, and the galaxy would remember what happened to those who tried to destroy the human spirit. Fleet Admiral Kate Williams received reports from human commanders across the galaxy. The reoccupation of human space was proceeding faster than anyone had thought possible. Alien forces were evacuating so quickly that human ships could barely keep up with the abandoned equipment and facilities. On some worlds, alien settlers had left so quickly that they abandoned family pets and livestock. Human Marines were finding alien animals wandering through empty cities, confused and hungry because their owners had disappeared. The psychological campaign had been designed to make aliens afraid of humanity. But Williams had not expected it to work quite so completely. The aliens were not just retreating from human space. They were fleeing in panic as if humanity was a plague that would consume everything it touched. Perhaps that was exactly what humanity had become in alien minds. A species that refused to die when they should have been defeated. A people who came back stronger after every defeat. A civilization that turned extinction into opportunity. Dr. Kevin Brooks prepared reports for the United Earth government about the changing galactic situation. As humanity's new chief diplomatic advisor, he was responsible for helping Earth's leaders understand how much the galaxy had changed. 3 years ago, humanity had been considered a minor species barely worthy of notice. Human requests for diplomatic recognition had been ignored. Human trade offers had been rejected. Human colonies had been attacked without warning or justification. Now humanity was the dominant military power in their region of the galaxy. Alien governments were competing to offer the most generous peace terms. Trade delegations were requesting permission to enter human space. The balance of power had shifted so completely that some alien species were asking for human protection against their traditional enemies. Brooks smiled as he compiled his report. The galaxy had learned what every human enemy eventually learned. You could hurt humanity badly. You could knock them down and make them disappear for a while, but you should never assume they were defeated. Because when humanity returned, they would be stronger than before, and they would remember exactly who had tried to destroy them. President Elizabeth Cole stood before the United Earth Assembly in the newly rebuilt capital of New Washington. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from every human world that had survived the alien attacks. These were people who had lost everything but never lost hope. Behind her, massive screens showed images from across human space. Former human colonies were being reoccupied by families who had waited 3 years to return home. Cities destroyed by alien bombardment were being rebuilt with new technology that made them stronger than before. Cole's speech was broadcast to every human ship and station in the galaxy. It was also transmitted to alien governments who were waiting to learn what humanity expected of them. Her message was simple and clear. Humanity wanted their territory back. They wanted payment for the colonies that had been destroyed. Most importantly, they wanted guarantees that such an attack would never happen again. The terms were not negotiable. Admiral Morrison commanded the expanded human fleet from his flagship UES Harbinger. What had begun as 12 ships had grown into the largest military force in known space. New vessels were arriving daily from the hidden shipyards around Earth. Each new ship was more advanced than the last. Human engineers were improving their technology faster than alien intelligence services could track. Weapons that had seemed impossible a few months ago were now standard equipment on human vessels. Morrison watched as alien evacuation fleets continued to stream out of human space. The process had taken weeks, not because of resistance, but simply because there were so many alien ships and installations to remove. The Zephyrians alone had operated more than 200 military bases in former human territory. Each base had to be emptied of personnel and equipment. Each evacuation required dozens of transport ships working around the clock. The crystalline hegemony had built entire cities on human worlds. Their civilian population in human space numbered in the millions. Moving so many people required a massive logistical effort that strained their transportation network to its limits, but they did it without complaint or delay. Speed was more important than efficiency when you were fleeing from humanity. The Zephyrian Emperor himself had sent a formal message to Earth. The transmission was broadcast on every frequency and translated into human languages. It was an official apology for the attack on human colonies and an offer to pay reparations that would bankrupt the Zephyrian treasury. The Emperor admitted that the attack on humanity had been a mistake. He claimed that Zephyrian military commanders had acted without proper authorization. He promised that such an attack would never happen again. Morrison knew the Emperor was lying about the unauthorized attack. The bombardment of human colonies had been planned and approved at the highest levels of Zephyrian government, but he was probably telling the truth about it never happening again. The Zephyrians had learned what happened to species that tried to destroy humanity. Captain Jenny Sullivan patrolled the borders of human space in the UES Guardian and observed how completely the galactic situation had changed. Alien ships now detoured around human territory by dozens of light years. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were being abandoned because they passed too close to human space. The economic cost to alien civilizations was enormous. Shipping companies were going bankrupt because their routes were no longer profitable. Mining operations were being shut down because they could not get their products to market efficiently. But the aliens were willing to pay that price rather than risk encountering human vessels. Sullivan's sensors detected an alien cargo convoy trying to sneak through the edge of human space. The convoy was loaded with rare metals that would be worth a fortune if they could reach their destination quickly. As soon as the alien ships detected Sullivan's vessel, they changed course immediately. They headed for the nearest hyperspace jump point, abandoning their profitable route for the safety of deep space. The convoy would lose millions of credits by taking the long way around human territory, but the alternative was facing whatever the humans might do to ships that violated their space. Dr. Kevin Brooks met with alien diplomatic representatives in a neutral space station near the galactic core. The station had been built specifically for these negotiations. It was equipped with the best security and communication equipment available. The alien delegates were unlike any diplomats Brooks had ever encountered. Normally, peace negotiations involved both sides making demands and offering concessions. Each party would try to get the best deal possible for their people. These aliens made no demands. They offered no concessions because they had nothing to bargain with. They simply waited to hear what humanity required of them. The lead Zephyrian delegate was a military officer who had commanded one of the ships that bombarded human colonies. He sat at the negotiating table with his head bowed in shame. "Inwendo," he spoke. His voice shook with fear. The crystalline hegemony representative was a former governor who had ruled over occupied human worlds for 3 years. She had ordered the destruction of human monuments and the construction of alien cities over human graveyards. Now she sat in silence, waiting for humanity to decide her fate. The Void Hunters had sent no representative at all. Their entire species had fled the galaxy rather than face the consequences of their actions. Brooks found the situation almost surreal. 3 years ago, these same aliens had treated humanity like a minor annoyance to be eliminated. They had laughed at human requests for peace and ignored human offers of cooperation. Now they were terrified of what humanity might do to them. Admiral Patricia Hayes coordinated the establishment of permanent peace treaties with alien governments. The documents were unlike any diplomatic agreements in galactic history. They were not mutual defense pacts or trade agreements between equals. They were surrender documents that alien governments signed to avoid complete destruction. The treaties established human territorial claims throughout their former space. They set up reparation payments that would continue for generations. Most importantly, they created monitoring systems that would ensure aliens could never again threaten human civilization. Human ships would patrol the borders of alien space. Human observers would monitor alien military activities. Human intelligence services would track alien weapon development programs. The galaxy would be watched by humanity to ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. Captain Rick Anderson commanded the science vessel UES Discovery as it explored the ruins of former human colonies. His mission was to catalog what had been lost and plan for reconstruction efforts. On New Boston, Anderson found the remains of a children's playground that had been destroyed by alien orbital bombardment. The metal swings were twisted and melted. The climbing equipment was buried under rubble from nearby buildings, but human engineers were already drawing up plans to rebuild the playground. It would be bigger and better than the original. Children would play there again, and they would grow up knowing that humanity could survive anything the galaxy threw at them. Anderson's team also discovered something unexpected in the ruins. Hidden beneath the destroyed buildings were bunkers and shelters that had protected some human civilians during the alien attack. Not everyone had died in the bombardment. Survivors had been living underground for 3 years, waiting for humanity to return. They had kept human culture alive in the darkness. They had raised children who had never seen the surface but still knew they were human. These hidden communities were found on every world the aliens had attacked. Thousands of humans had survived by hiding in places the aliens had not thought to look. They were coming up from their shelters now, blinking in sunlight they had not seen for 3 years. Their first words were always the same question. Had humanity really returned to stay? Commander Jake Morrison stood once again on the bridge of the UES Harbinger, now serving as flagship of the Home Defense Fleet. Human space was secure and growing larger every day. Human colonies were being rebuilt with new technology and better defenses. The galaxy had learned to respect the species that emerged from the void when everyone thought they were dead. Alien parents told their children stories about human determination and human refusal to accept defeat. Human ships patrolled the borders of their territory with quiet confidence. They did not need to make threats or display their weapons. Their mere presence was enough to ensure that nothing hostile approached human space. Morrison looked out at the stars and thought about how much had changed in just a few months. Humanity had gone from presumed extinction to galactic dominance without firing a shot in anger. They had accomplished through reputation and psychology what would have required massive battles and countless deaths. The alien coalition that had tried to destroy humanity now existed only as historical footnote. The Zephyrian Empire was paying reparations and would do so for decades. The crystalline hegemony had dissolved its regional government and withdrawn behind its original borders. The Void Hunters had fled the galaxy entirely. New alien governments were requesting formal diplomatic relations with humanity. Species that had never contacted humans before were asking for trade agreements and mutual defense pacts. The galaxy wanted to be friends with the people they had tried to destroy.